There's this saying that goes like this: there are two certainties in life, death and taxes. This statement has always just seemed false to me because you can get around paying taxes. I've always thought a truer statement is this: there are two certainties in life, death and change. There's no way you're getting around change. But yet, we all try and bob and weave and we try and hide from it, but it finds us every single time. So today, I'm going to share what I think is probably the number one reason that we bob and weave from change, and share 6 tips that will help you embrace change and thrive. Come on in. One morning in December 2015, I woke up and my back just seemed a little different. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the beginning of a life overhaul. What I would come to discover in the days that followed was that I had 3 bulging discs, and they were resting on the nerve that led to my right, to the lower half of my right leg, which meant my lower half of my right leg was paralyzed. And so that sent me on a journey of recovery. I ended up undergoing surgery and spending 1.5 years in physical therapy, learning how to use my leg again. During that time frame, I used mindfulness. It helped me be aware of what was going on with my body at any given time, so I could rest when I needed to, but also push the boundaries a little bit so I can make more gains in my recovery. And then in 2018, I participated in my church's fast. Now, I participated in a fast before. This wasn't new. But in 2018, I decided to do a Daniel fast. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Daniel fast, it's a 21-day fast where you eat vegetables and fruits and grains. And generally it's raw, depending on how strict you follow the Daniel fast. And you don't have breads with any kind of yeast. So I did that for the first time. And a few days in, I was amazed at how incredible my body felt. I mean, it was significantly different. And I thought to myself, we should eat like this all the time. I mean, we feel great. This is amazing. So no change. Then in 2019, I did the Daniel fast again and had the same amazing response. So I said to self, hey, we feel great again. So in 2019, there I was once again doing the Daniel fast, amazed once again at how great my body felt. And so of course, I thought to myself, and it was a no-go. But in 2021, things changed. I came across Isaiah 43:19 that says, I am about to do something new. Even now it is coming. Do you not see it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. And it was like a light bulb went off. It was this moment where I got it. And so this time I said, hey, I think we should change. And so we did. But it still took me 5 years to make a change that my body was telling me needed to happen. And I'm not the only one who struggles with that. A 2001 study followed 150,000 people that had experienced a stroke or heart attack, and they followed them for 6 years. And each one of those people was told to make changes to their smoking, to their diet, and exercise. And at the end of 6 years, only, drum roll please, 4% had made changes in all 3 areas. And the research did point out that for people who lived in rural areas, that resources were limited, and also most people didn't have a provider give them much education on how to make those changes. But for really being honest, even when we have information and we have access to resources, we still don't change. And we don't change because it's uncomfortable. But once again, if we're honest, we're uncomfortable every single day and we don't change. Because we're usually so busy, we never stop long enough to realize just how uncomfortable we are. We just go on autopilot, we just go through the motions. The question I want you to ask yourself, which discomfort is going to meet my needs and align me with my values? Because if I'm going to be uncomfortable, I might as well get something good out of it, right? I think, and this is just from my 20 years of doing therapy, not from any research, that we don't change because we don't have a true perspective of who we are. And so we underestimate our abilities. And I think we also, no, I don't think, I know we do, we underestimate God. We just leave him out of the whole process. So the 6 tips I'm going to share with you are designed to get you to shift your perspective on how you see yourself and to involve God in the process so you can embrace change. Tip number 1. Are you ready? Check your thoughts. What we think is the foundation for how we feel and ultimately what we do. And for most people, when it comes to change, our thinking tends to be negative. We tend to think things like, oh, I'm not going to be successful at that. People are going to make fun of me. I'm going to make mistakes. People won't understand. I'll look stupid. And if those are the thoughts that you're having, it makes sense that you're not going to change and you don't want to change because those thoughts are very limiting and judgmental, not motivating at all. But thoughts that are motivating and realistic are, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to learn from them. And some people will not understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but I know it's a good decision for me. And I may look silly for a little while I'm trying to figure it all out, but it'll be temporary. And I may lose some friends in the process, but more than likely, they're probably friends I don't need to begin with because true friends would want me to grow and thrive. When you have those kinds of thoughts, those motivate you to change. And they also help you focus on the things you need to do to increase the likelihood of success in your change. So now you're looking for ways to be successful versus looking for all the evidence that you're failing. So check your thinking. Number 2, hard work. The change is a gradual process. It is a process. It's not just the destination. So scientifically, the process would be best captured with the term neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is our ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections, especially responses to learning or experience or after an injury. And I'll use this example. Let's say you live in a house that's next to a large field, and about half a mile away from that field is a beautiful pond. And you know, if you can get to that pond every morning, you will be able to see an amazing sunrise, and that will just set your mood for the day and you'll be more successful for the day. So one morning you decide to get up and you're gonna walk to the pond. Now that first morning, the path to the pond, it doesn't exist. So it's really hard. So your feet get caught up in the grass and you're tripping over sticks and stones and all kinds of things. But you make it to the pond and you're so excited that you went on the journey. And then the next morning you get up and you walk the path again. And it goes a little easier the next morning because, well, you've walked the path. And each day you walk the path and you get to the pond. And then one season, it's really rainy. And the pond rises, there's mud everywhere, there's mosquitoes everywhere. And now this pond that used to be a source of joy and peace for you no longer is. So you have to still get that need met. So you decide to make another path because you know if you can go a little further up, there is an elevation that you can sit on and you can see the sunrise. So you set about making a new path and you walk that path and you have the same experience you had with the first one. The first few days are really difficult, but then over time, the path is there and it's easier to walk the path. You get to the pond, you enjoy the scenery, and you're amazed. That's essentially neuroplasticity. We spend a lot of time making these synaptic connections in our mind with the behaviors that we're currently doing. And when we want to change, we have to set out on a new path. We have to make another pathway to establish the new way of being. And it takes time. It takes every single day getting up and doing the new thing. And over time, it gets easier. And this idea that hard work is drudgery and it's going to be miserable, I think that keeps us from doing it too. But if you're walking this new path, it means you're going to see new trees, right? And you're on an elevation, so you're going to have a new perspective of that sunrise. And you might experience that you have even more joy and more peace. So when you're thinking that, oh man, change is hard work, I don't want to do this and it takes time, it does. But the journey can be really rewarding and really beautiful. Tip number 3, accept God's perspective. In Isaiah 43:19, God tells Israel, tells you and me to look at the now. A lot of times when change is coming up, when change is happening or coming, we are predicting into the future what it's going to be like. But he wants us to focus on the now, because in the now, I have the resources that I need, and I can also see what he's doing, the preparation work he's doing for the next. A lot of times we're so busy with our day, we don't even realize that we've been lulled into complacency. And we don't even realize we are on autopilot at work and on autopilot in our relationships. And when we're on autopilot, we just don't thrive. We don't live up to our full design. But change is always going to pull us out of that complacency, and it's going to snap us out of autopilot. It's going to encourage us to lean into him. So God has more in store for you. He doesn't want you living on autopilot. He doesn't want you to be complacent. He wants you to know that he constantly has provision and greatness in mind for you, which means you're going to have to live where you are, even if it doesn't seem like wilderness, even if it doesn't seem like it's a drought. It is. And once you move, you'll realize, oh my goodness, wow, I'm so glad I made the change, because I'm really getting fulfilled more in this season, in this place. So accept God's perspective. When you look at the verses prior to 43:19, you will see this interesting thing unfold. You see God share this narrative of how he destroyed enemies and how he made a way and how he made provisions. And then he says, now, don't dwell on the events and don't think about the things of old. And then we come to our verse where he says, hey, do you see what I'm doing right now? And if you're just reading those verses, you probably won't catch it. But if you really stop and look at what he's saying, you will. We have a tendency to look back on our past and we see the regrets, the failures, the mistakes, and that's all we see. But God wants us to see, look what I did when you were in those situations. Remember the mountains I moved. Remember the seas that I parted. Remember the enemies that you no longer have in your life. Don't just think about the events. Don't look back on the events. Remember, I was there with you. I was there, and I'm here now. I'm here now, and I'm doing something. I'm going to do something, and I'm doing something. That whatever is up ahead, it may be hard, it may be challenging, it may be scary, but I'm going to be with you just like I was then, just like I am now, and I will be there in your next. You have the best battle buddy you could ever have, God. Tip number 6, our gains. We rarely think about the things that we're going to gain whenever we make changes. And so oftentimes when I know a client has to make a big change, I will spend time doing this exercise. I'll have them sit down and I'll have them write 2 columns, not changing and changing. And under each column, I'll say, okay, what are the pros and what are the cons? And we'll list the things out in each one of those areas. Because I want them to understand that whatever behaviors you're doing now, it serves a need, it serves a purpose. We need to understand what's the purpose, what needs are being met with those behaviors, and identify that those same needs can be met, but in a different way. Really breaking it down and going, okay, yes, I'm going to be sacrificing this or changing this, but I'm also going to be gaining this over here. Before I give you the final tip, if you're liking this so far, go ahead and hit the like button, because that lets YouTube know that we have something great going on here, and it lets me know that you want me to keep doing these great videos. Tip number 6, educate and experiment. We think, I'm gonna get up tomorrow and I'm gonna go run a mile. Never mind, you've never even walked a mile, but somehow you're going to run a mile. We have this idea, and we never take the time to really educate ourselves and to experiment and just kind of baby step our way into the change. I mean, some things happen where we just have to embrace the change and keep going. But a lot of times we do have some control over the momentum of the change. We can spend time educating ourselves and equipping ourselves with the resources that we need, and we're more likely to set up goals that are realistic. Unlike my rhino here, who's trying to be a unicorn, it's not going to happen. So when we take that time to really go, okay, what is it that's happening, and what part do I have control over? And there are aspects that you do have control over. And so spending time looking at those parts so you can manage them well and be successful. So those are the tips. Check your thoughts. Hard work doesn't have to be impossible, and it's going to take time. Accept God's perspective. Have a new perspective on your past. Look at what you can gain and educate yourself. And if you do those things, you'll find that stepping into change isn't as challenging. If change is happening, that means that there is something great up ahead. And keeping that in your mind and looking for the evidence of it as you go into each day. And when you start looking for the evidence, it just gets a little easier to walk through those seasons, because like I said earlier, change is going to happen. We can't stop it, but we definitely can look at how we walk through the season and really grow our faith. And that's what God is really wanting us to do, to see Him in the experience and learn more about Him and learn more about ourselves. And when we do that, well, that's how we become unstoppable and we have unlimited influence in our world. And I want that for you, and I want that for me. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, take care and have a blessed day. Bye.